Hey everybody, welcome to the Mashed Bananas podcast. And I got with me is Jennifer, very good friend of mine. She's a marketing CMO and she's done a lot of work. She's very well traveled. And maybe you want to tell them a little about yourself.
Well, as Sonu was saying, I am a good friend of his and pleasure to be here. Yeah, I've traveled a lot. I've lived in 7 different countries, live here now in Houston, grew up, as you probably can tell by our accents, in the New York, New Jersey area. And yeah, I am a CMO, a Chief Marketing Officer.
Awesome. All right, so let's start this podcast away and, talk about a couple of things.
Cool.
Again, remember guys, this is the Mashed Bananas podcast. Peace. And Jennifer is basically a CMO in the digital marketing space. She's got tons of experience. She's a big shot. And so the reason why she's here is, first off, she's a very good friend of mine. And second of all, I just wanted to know because she has a friend who had a DUI and she went to jail. And I wanted to experience from her friend's side, what is the experience like and what should people with DUI do and not do, things like that. And her friend didn't want to be in the video, so you're representing your friend Caroline.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sonu, for appreciate being here. Yeah, my friend Caroline couldn't be here because she's in jail, but that's a long story, but happy to get into that.
Yeah. So I basically wanted to know, you could chill, don't worry, it's just a podcast,
Yeah, I'm here.
Let loose. So here's what I wanted to know. How the hell did you get a DUI?
Well, I mean, lots of people get DUIs, but this particular DUI was a really interesting one. But, it's important to know that before this DUI, this friend had another DUI. And so that's a problem because once you get one DUI, it's usually a misdemeanor. But the second time, it becomes a felony. And the third time, it's even more serious. So this first one was a regular DUI. She was stopped. But the second DUI was a really interesting situation. Some would argue it's not really a DUI because she wasn't even driving the car. I mean, did you know that you can actually get a DUI?
For not driving?
For not driving.
So I had this friend called Heather in New Jersey. She had a few drinks. She gets out of the bar. She sits in her car.
Yeah.
Doors open, windows open, She turns on her car. That's all she does.
Yep.
And there is a cop waiting outside the bar for people, preying on them.
Yep.
Just to sit in the car. All she had to do was turn on her car, and she got a DUI.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they say. As long as the key's in the ignition and the ignition's on, you can get a DUI. Even though you're not planning on going anywhere, you just might be trying to get some heat. It's New Jersey, right? I mean, you might be trying to keep warm or make a phone call or whatever, charge your phone, right? But yeah, I mean, this particular friend, Caroline, I mean, her situation was her key wasn't even in the ignition. She was just coming out from a store. But someone actually suspected that she was drinking, and
I'm sure that's her husband, right?
Well, I think it's basically her ex, but trying to probably get a little revenge or whatever.
She's going through that fucking divorce situation.
Yeah, exactly. So she's got a lot going on, and
by the way, you can drop profanity if you want, that's cool on this podcast.
All right, well, anyway, so this fucking ex-husband of hers, I think, just called the cops to rat her out, and she was just trying to pick up
some
coffee in the morning. But, she was drinking the night before, but she wasn't really drinking and driving because she wasn't even planning to be in her car.
So this happened in the morning?
This happened in the morning. But did you know that when you drink the night before, a lot of times they say, I don't know, say alcohol stays in your system, but it's not like she was out drinking. So, and she wasn't even driving. Key wasn't even in the car.
Okay, so let me get this straight. She was in the in the gas station, buying whatever, her coffee or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
She comes out and there are like a bunch of cops out there.
Yep.
And they're like, you got a DUI.
Yeah. Well, no, they didn't say that yet. They said, hey, you've been drinking and driving? This is what she told me anyway. I wasn't there, but she told me, what they did was they're like, man, we suspect that you've been drinking and driving, and we're going to need you to do what they call a field sobriety test, what they make you walk the line.
Although she's not in the car, she's outside somewhere.
No, she still had her package in her hand. And
anybody could have driven the car, left it there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what she was telling me. I mean, just because it's her car doesn't mean she was driving it. And just because it's her car doesn't mean she was driving, anybody was even driving it right at that moment. It could have been just there overnight.
And I remember when I spoke to her, This is what she told me, your friend,
Yeah.
that it was her friend who's in jail right now. She ran because the cops were there. And since they didn't find a driver, they got your friend. And they made her do this sobriety test. And I know that your friend has some arthritis in her heel. So she couldn't do the sobriety test. And so she refused.
Yeah.
And then they just hollered to jail.
Yeah.
And the ex is like, you know. So, okay. What's it like? Like, this is crazy, right? I mean, she should just dump that ex's out. She should, like, countersue that ex for, like, you know, public defamation. She should countersue him for, you know, psychological damage.
Yeah.
And basically reputational damage.
Yeah, I mean, basically what the cops didn't have really was probable cause other than this crazy ex kind of trying to stir the pot, right? Probably knew she had been out with her friend, right?
Right.
But had no idea what had gone down, didn't know that there was the friend who was one behind the wheel. But by the way, it wasn't even, you know, right after the bar. It wasn't like your friend Heather. This is in the morning, right? There was no probable real cause why any cops should have been showing up 8 in the morning when someone's coming out with a cup of coffee in their hands, you know?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about something else. You know, I just wanted to know, like, what's your marketing job like?
You know, people ask about marketing, what's your typical day like? And I think my first response is there is no typical day. But basically, marketers really need to be focused on the growth of a company, right? So all companies, no small surprise, want to grow, right? But marketing really needs to be focused on using all the tools of marketing to really better help companies grow by at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. Marketing's about helping companies sell their products and services to customers.
Like religious people selling religion to
I mean, yeah, I mean, the church, you could argue, is the biggest marketing engine on the planet, right? I mean, you're trying to convert people.
Yeah.
You're trying to get people to keep going to
Here's
church.
what I don't understand. Why
Yeah.
do they want to convert people? Like, you know, what's the purpose? Like, spread the word of Christianity?
I mean, I think the idea is the same as marketing. It's like, let's go back to marketing, right? The more people that use your coffee product, the better it is, the more you're going to grow as a company. If you're a church, you're trying to grow, right? You're trying to have more people believe in your word.
I'm just going to check your mic. Give me 1 second. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so what I was saying is that it's the church is like any organization, right, that's trying to grow. The more people believe your word versus someone else's word, the more you're going to stay engaged. And then, of course, I mean, you know, as growing up Catholic, I probably shouldn't say this, but there's the economic motivation too. The more people in your church,
because I had like missionaries approach me.
yeah,
and
the
be
more
like,
you bring the money into them, right? The tithing idea, and
they're always pushing me to go to the church. And so these guys came to me like twice or thrice. I was very nice to them.
yeah,
And this one guy tries to read from the Bible. Like,
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what happened if you want to know.
yeah, of course.
So the missionaries approached me one day, knocking on my door. And I was like, hey, how you doing? I'm busy right now. I'm working, you know, come back later. Like, I just wanted to be polite. They came back 2 days later, same thing. Then they came 2 days later, same thing. I said, all right, man, you know what? Tell me, what's your proposition? What do you want from me? Then they were like, do you go to the church? I was like, not really. I mean, it's not like I haven't been to the church.
Right.
You know, but I don't go there and light a candle. And, you know, my mom used to do that.
Yeah.
But not me. I'm more spiritual. For me, spirituality
Yeah, I
and
get
things
it.
like that. You know, the sun, the planets, and beings outside. Our, you know, interdimensional beings, whatnot. Anyway, like, you know, you guys would probably be like, this guy's nuts. But yes, I am nuts. So they come over and then, you know, I'm like, and then they're telling me, you got to come to the church and Jesus will heal you and all of that. I was like, okay, we'll come back later because, you know, I can't be healed right now and I got a shit a ton of work to do because you guys only come in the middle of the day.
Right,
Like,
you're working,
come
right?
after 6 or something. I was like that. In the summer, this was.
Oh, okay.
So then what happens is they're like, okay, but, you know, just come to the church. We'll take you to the church and we'll show you the church. And I'm like, what's the motivation behind this? You know, so I asked them, like, what do you want me to come see the church and do? Like, you know, pray? Like, I'll pray, it's all right, but I don't need a tour of the church. And I figured there was a monetary thing, because when you Google what missionaries do, they want you to pay a certain amount to the church to increase some revenue, church revenue, I guess. So anyway, this guy comes to me and he's like, I'm gonna pray for you. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, let's pray. I'm going like this. I'm like, I'm waiting for him to go, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. He opens his Bible and he's skimming through pages. I was like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm looking for some, I don't know, Matthew or Isaac or whatever. And he starts reading. And I'm listening, like, like this. All right, listening, like, in front of my door. And he stops. And I'm like, confused. I look at him, why'd you stop? Oh, I'm reading the wrong passage. Let me find the right passage. I'm like, dude, it's a prayer.
Pick one.
Just read it, like, And he reads that cryptic message on that paragraph. And then he's like, something like, the Lord dawned from the fields of corn, and then the shepherds were, enlightened by his presence, or something like that. He went on. Very cryptic message. Super cryptic. I couldn't understand what it meant, like, And I said, okay, man, like, this is good. Like, I understood the whole thing. Like, I cut him off in the middle. I was like, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah.
You prayed. You're happy. I'm happy. I got to go. You go.
Right.
Indirect, like,
Right.
Then they came over after a week at 8:30 p.m. at night.
Wow, kind of late.
Yeah, that's when I was flipping out on them. I was like, really? Guys, 8:30 p.m., you're knocking on my door? Like, seriously? What's wrong with you? Come back later. Then they came a couple of days after at 6 o'clock evening. I was like, man, these guys are persistent. I opened the garage door. I put 2 chairs out there. And I said, all right, talk to me. Tell me, what is it? What do you want, man? Jesus will heal you, or something like that, they said. I said, I'll tell you what. You want me to come to the church? You want me to be a part of Christianity? He's like, yeah, okay. And if I do that, he will heal me. He's like, yeah, the Lord will heal you. He will heal you. He will get rid of all your pain and suffering. I said, okay, there's a cancer hospital right down the road. And there are kids dying of cancer. Go heal them. All right, so that's so much about religion and all of that stuff. Do you know anybody who had addictions and stuff like that?
Oh, I know a lot of people who have had addictions. Yeah. I mean, my dad had an addiction.
You know something? Like, there was a time when I was, like, smoking cigarettes. Not a lot of cigarettes. But I thought it was a lot because I'm from a sports background.
Yeah.
I boxed, powerlifted, had to shift my weight a lot. But there was a time when I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then one day, my body, I have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
I have no fucking idea what happened. I picked up a cigarette one day, and my body's like, man, I don't like it. And I was like, maybe just one of those days,
Yeah.
Picked up a cigarette again a day after. Same reaction. I said, what the hell is going on, man?
Yeah.
Picked up a cigarette for the 3rd time again. And I just didn't like the taste, didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Dropped it, ever since haven't smoked. And even if I do smoke right now, with a bunch of friends and everything, like, it's just...
You don't get a lot of pleasure out of it.
Just like, 1 or 2 puffs, and I'm like, man, when is this thing gonna end? Like,
Yeah.
And then I wait for a friend who's done smoking, and I give it to them, like, here, take it.
Yeah.
So it's not like, sometimes you're like, oh, a cigarette, let me go grab one. You light it, but you're like, oh, man, why did I even light it? Here, take it back. I don't want it. Like, you just take 1 or 2 puffs and you just give it away.
Yeah.
So a lot of other friends of mine, like I have this friend called Tila, she loves her cigarettes.
Okay.
Just totally loves her cigarettes. So Tila, we're talking about you. And so I told her, hey, you know what? Take this. Like, drop that cigarette. You know, just take this. And I even got her a vape and I gave it to her one day. Like, you know, we were hanging out at her place and I said, take the vape. She took the vape. She hit it. Like, yeah, she would hit it on and off while she was working.
Yeah.
And I was like, how's the vape treating you? She's like, man, I love my cigarettes. I don't know how you stopped. I said, I didn't stop. My body just told me to stop it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, it's not even an addiction. My body just went like, I don't like it anymore.
Yeah.
And it was so good. Like, I'm like, yeah, man. You know, I don't have to work hard to fight my addiction or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people who go through addiction and
Well, the reality is when you have an addiction, let's call it alcohol, drugs, whatever, overeating, a lot of times the body can't do what you just described, right? So you were lucky because your body basically said, no, man, like no more cigarettes, like, and you just got grossed out, right? Where people, for example, who, alcoholics, like my dad was, you basically wind up having an insatiable craving, and you take the first drink and then you can't stop. It's not like what you just described where you took those 2 puffs and you're done, you're going to waste a cigarette. Ever talk to someone?
yeah.
You ever see anybody who's a real drinker? Like, they never go leave a
oh
bar.
my God, I had this friend called Raj. So he would have a whole bottle of Jacks.
Oh my God, that's a lot.
A whole big bottle of Jacks, okay?
Uh-huh.
So here's what he would do. He'd take a glass, he'd pour like a 60 or a 90 on it.
Yeah.
And then he would open a bottle of water and hold on to it.
What I was saying is that's what they talk about in addiction, like the Jekyll and Hyde behavior, and not all Jekylls and Hydes are the same, right? Some people get really emotional, some people get abusive, some people get forgetful, and so, but it's not an excuse, obviously. You can't justify someone's behavior just because they've had something to drink or they've had some drugs. That said, people have to realize that addiction there is a, they call it a disease component, right? It is not just someone decides to drink too much, right? It is sometimes that they have a chemical imbalance that they can't handle their substances as much.
Man, in my life, I haven't done more than, at the most I've done was 4 beers. And the other day, I was sick. That's the only time I did bourbon.
Yeah.
Buffalo Trace. And what did I do? 2 small little, put just like maybe a 30 in it.
Yeah.
Top the whole glass with water.
Yeah.
And I'm sipping it. And I'm eating some munchies because I don't like the taste.
Right.
After the second one, I was fucked up. My body was like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah, well, your body was having that reaction you had to the cigarettes, right?
Yeah,
You're, like,
because,
telling me, no thanks, man, don't do that.
Yeah, because I didn't, I would sip from my dad's glass when I was a teenager or something like that, but I've never had a full glass of alcohol till the age of 30.
Yeah.
Because you're in sport,
Right.
you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to drink. My coach was very, like, if he got to know I even took a sip from my dad's glass, he would flip out on me. Man.
Well, there's an expression in addiction, they say that 1 drink is not enough and 1,000 isn't either, right? And basically what that means is, like, it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 1,000, you're always going to crave more. It's just seeming like your buddy, the Jack Daniels guy, I mean, like, that's a lot, right? And and so it's really, not having that first cigarette.
And he would always buy the cheap hard liquor.
Yeah.
So he had more quantity
Right.
than just the quality of enjoying a good drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was
But, the good news is that people can, they can't necessarily control it, but they can learn how to manage it.
When I was a kid, there was one dipshit I remember. We used to go to the coffee shop. And this guy would always be sitting over there drawing. And guess what he was addicted to?
What?
Benadryl.
Oh, yeah.
You freaking open the Benadryl bottle cap, chug it down, close it.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's cough syrup. Like, damn, 1 spoon of that Benadryl was like, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And this dude was like just chugging it down. Like he would, and I would ask him like, how many Benadryls do you have in a day? He'd be
Yeah.
at least 5 or 6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of times, going back to your thing about the drinking during when you were feeling sick, a lot of times people use alcohol or drugs or whatever, cigarettes even, like as a way to escape stress, you know, to not
Yeah.
deal with feelings that they want to have. When you're sick, you feel like shit, right? So you're trying to escape that shit. So it's easier to drink something. In your case, you were lucky because your body was like, man, don't play with me here. Don't do any more.
Because I don't take medicines. I'm so against it.
Right.
I'll probably take medicines if I'm like really fucked up.
Right. Had surgery or something. Yeah.
No, or, you know, I mean, I had some inflammation in my ankle because I twisted it
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
It was so painful that I had to be on medication to reduce my ankle
Yeah,
pain.
I mean, right. But what you're saying is don't just take a pill because the doctor says take a pill.
Yeah, so, you know, if I get sick, I'm not just going to take a pill. So
Yeah.
I got sick recently for at least a week. What did I do? I basically did the bourbon for 1 day. I knew I couldn't do that bourbon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I didn't hit my vape. I was on soups. I was hydrating myself, and I was sweating it out.
Yep. Yep. Sometimes the body just needs to fight.
I got weak in the process, but you know how weak I got. Like, you know, we try to work out and we try to do our cardio, and I was like,
Yeah.
man, I can't do it
Yeah.
anymore. Like, you know.
Yeah. So like I said, sometimes the body just needs a break.
And then I was like, forget it. I ain't doing the cardio. You do your thing. I'm gonna wait by the gym. And but anyway, I got stronger. And today we're gonna train legs,
Yep.
legs, chest, and
Yep.
back.
That's good.
You know, so that's going to be intense.
Yeah.
So that's me getting back to the gym after a week. But thank God,
Yeah.
this was my cheat week, like
Yeah.
rest week. Sorry.
Yeah, so you didn't take too much of a step back. And people just need to give their bodies time to heal, you know. I used to be a big runner, and that's what the coach always said. And, you know, sometimes I didn't heed the coach's advice, you know, that you need to take time off.
Yeah, and you burned out your muscles.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the process.
Exactly.
All right, so it was great having a conversation. You know, I wish we could have some more of this because
Yeah.
we talked about, like you said, religion, addiction. We talked about DUI.
DUIs,
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
I mean, all topics probably some of you might shoot the shit with your friends about. you know?
Exactly. And I hope these guys have enjoyed it. It
Yeah.
was like technically my first podcast, apart from the perfect 10 that we had with my daughter.
Well,
If you guys want to watch it because it's got a kid in it. But yeah, this has been great. I think we should have some more of these.
Yeah, I'd love
You
to.
know, more guests and everything.
Definitely.
And,
Yeah.
You know, I hope the audio video quality is great. So throw in some love, people. Throw in some love.
thanks.
All right. Peace.